All right, folks, we are back. Hopefully those of you online had a tasty lunch that will sustain you over the next 4.5 hour marathon. 4 hours? I don't know. I don't know time anymore. We're having too much fun.
Still 5.
I can't.
Unless you wanna go for
It's
fun,
4
you know,
hours,
that's
sorry.
fine.
My brain's not functioning anymore. So, the next 4 hours. Okay. All right, so we are back and it's been clarified that it is 4 hours, not more. So thank you all for reining in. I was just checking to see if folks were awake post lunch. So with that, we are going to move into we had started down the road, I think, of 65 with the in-stream transfers and leases general provisions. And I'm just going to note on that one, nope, we had started down 70, excuse me. 70 is where we left off, before, me and, a couple other folks on our team were confounded by some of the language that we put in. So, we are going to just put I guess, in the parking lot for the moment. We will bring it back to a discussion around the secondary water rights for stored water. And, we were doing some problem solving during lunch, but we couldn't solve all the problems. So, we will bring that piece back. So I want to see if there's other items on 7D that folks would like to discuss. I'll just note for the group here that pretty much that most of the ones that are coming up, I think you'll all want to take a look at. So we'll do that as we go through these next ones. Stop on each one for a second. Okay, Jen.
I just missed something on, it's back to 65, number 4.
Certainly, okay, we're going back to 65 here.
Number 4 is the second line, including signatures of lessors, which I think if there's another section, I'm not placing it right now, but further back in here for leases, where the districts can hold landowner signatures in the background, and they're like co-lessors.
It says if applicable though.
If applicable. Okay.
So I think since we wrote it over there.
I didn't know if that referred to just the lessee or if that also referred to the lessor. Yeah, just wanted to make sure that.
Oh. I read it as I don't think we need to put if applicable twice. But we could say including signatures, comma, where applicable, comma, of lessors and lessees.
Okay.
Yeah, does that make it better?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
wrap some both in a little more
Awesome.
more clearly.
Brandon's comma deep.
Our conversations about commas are paying off here. I like it. Thank you, Jen. Thanks for helping us make that clear. Anything else on 65 or 70?
Yeah, just while we're on that number 4, the third line, it says year-round uses instead of year-round.
That was in 70 or was in 65?
65.
Okay.
Something.
Third line.
Okay, we will get that one fixed. That's a. Right, so. Moving along to 71. 71 is map requirements for transfer and lease applications. This one does not follow 305. Although there are similar themes to prior divisions, so I'll pause there, just given prior conversations around maps and see if we need to do anything this one. Jen. And then Chris.
I just have a question on 1B under mapping. And it's just including tax lots. Do you have to include the numbers? Because we even have on a single quarter, which you have to show the whole quarter. We have like 1/8 of an acre lots and 1/4 acre lots being leased, and it's just like a dot identifying the lease and then dots identifying where all the other water rights are. But if you try to put in tax lot numbers, it just outlines, okay, and identify the number. What's that?
It's appropriate.
Yeah,
That's why we have that. Who gets to determine it's appropriate though?
Well, yeah, can we provide clarity?
Okay, so I'm not gonna put Sarah on the spot
Yeah.
to fix it right now,
Yeah.
but we will take a note that, so for those online, 1B. Has been flagged, it's potentially in some cases, particularly around tax lots. Maybe being a little complicated and messy on the mapping, and so we might want to provide additional clarity there.
like we always identify the lot that's being leased,
Yeah,
that lot number, but we can't always identify like all the lots around it because they're just like too many sometimes.
so don't we? Do we really mean the tax lot of the 1B leased? Well, I'm not,
Definitely that.
okay, we'll take that under advisement, we'll see if we can make something that makes sense. Of that. Chris,
General question is, why not just follow 305 since it's been created? You know, all roads lead to 305 and then just make sure you get 305 right. Is it because there doesn't want to be a CWRE?
so 305 doesn't require CWRE in all
Okay.
cases, but Chris, I think your question is an excellent question that I have not had an opportunity to ask staff. So, Lisa.
I would start with, there's enough differences with the in-stream process, like identifying stream reaches and things like that, cause, and I'll kick it over to Sarah, cause she had a discussion with Jerry Clark about this, whether to tie to 305 or not, but we landed on there's enough unique needs with an in-stream water right, or in-stream transfer lease, that it made sense to just identify what's
There-
needed.
Yeah,
But
basically, they're already identifying everything that we asked for on, or everything that we're needing to see is already identified. They're also not having to prove up on it later, submit no claims of beneficial use for in-stream transfer or in-stream lease. And the in-stream lease is temporary, just like a temporary transfer application. And so we don't think it's necessary to have a CWRE hired to do this now.
So, Sarah, I think the question is,
that the question?
so 305 doesn't require a CWRE, right? But the question is, why don't we just put 305 requirements in here? And maybe that's a follow-up, because Chris, it was something as I was looking at this, I was like, I don't know the answer to this question, which is a fair question. So we'll take a look at it. I think there's some similarities and there's some differences, and there's, what's in 305 was asking for too much is what I'm hearing whispered over here. So we'll evaluate that, but I think that's, part of it is we're trying to make sure that out of stream appropriations aren't, exactly the same as the in-stream piece, right? So.
I may be an outlier here, but I would think that, the provisions that were in 305 as proposed, I mean, plus maybe even having electronic, lat lawn and other stuff I've requested, wouldn't necessarily be too much. In fact, actually, I don't think having too much information in the digital age is much of a technical problem. So I would just set that aside as just one thought, but if I understand correctly, if I'm a water right holder and I wanna lease some water in a stream, I make up my own map and I hatch where I'm not gonna be watering. And, one of the things that CWRE does is that they have like their license bonding, insurance, all that sort of stuff, all of that is at risk for not screwing things up. And I could imagine that there could be a possibility where the water right holder who is doing this in-stream lease thing may or may not accurately make their map for various reasons. And that there might be a nice like little curtain in between them and the map maker to ensure that the hatching is done right, that the details, the facts are, the scale is, not too far out.
I think that, I think we have to balance the cost of compliance and additional regulations, right? With them, making sure we're getting the information we need, so I hear you on that. I think I would be particularly reluctant to, do that on an in-stream lease. Something that is not permanent to, require that additional piece there, so we can, take a look though at 305 in this provision and, it's division 77. There's a reason you received it last week is because we were still working through some of the stuff, so. I think that's fair for us to go back and look at that piece. I just don't think that we necessarily want to go down that road of, requiring a CWRE.
Are you concerned it might disincentivize somebody doing a lease?
I think it would. Yeah.
Okay.
So, Jen and then Austin.
So Jen Hubert, Deschutes River Conservancy, and I see Jesse Talbot on here from COID, online. We do probably maybe more than half of the leasing for the entire state in our basin and with more than 300 landowners a year. And if we had to do CWRD maps for all of our leasing, it would be prohibitively expensive for a temporary program with water rights flipping through every year. And then I think that's maybe a little bit more than what's asked of some of the other temporary transfers of water for water users. So I don't think that they all require CWRE. But then also just on 1E, identify points of diversion on the water right. We do this on the form. We don't do it on the maps. That's new. I think in a lot of cases that would just be an additional map for us because with district leasing, especially the POD might be 30 miles from the water use that's being leased in stream.
Jen, I want to dig into that, and Austin, I promise I'll get to you for a second. This is me not having looked at this before, so I'm gonna acknowledge that. But if you're already providing, out of curiosity, the proposed in-stream reach on the map, wouldn't that show the POD? Because doesn't the in-stream reach go from the POD down? So wouldn't that,
We don't
would that be?
show that on the map. We list it, it's identified on the form. At least for leases. For transfers, we might submit a reach map as well, in addition to the transfer map, because they wouldn't be able to fit them both on one map. In most cases.
Austin?
Austin Patch, Summit Water Resources. I'm looking at sub C here, and for consistency with 305, it states if an irrigation right or nursery use, and it specifies nursery use and doesn't have other similar use language. I'm curious if this was intentional or if adding nursery use is sufficient in this case to define other similar uses.
Almost would wonder if we should go the other way and have the other similar use go into 305.
Yeah.
Because would we can,
We said other similar use here because we didn't want to just specify just irrigation and nursery. What if it's something else?
Industrial.
well, the key here is the number of acres to be leased, right?
Right.
That's what this is about. This is about
You know,
acres, right? It's
if-
not about, so it need to be similar to irrigation where there's an acreage identified.
If there's acreage to be
Yeah.
identified, then identify it. That's basically what we're trying to say here. So,
So it would seem to me that 305 would be the one to change versus this one, because this one's. So Austin, we'll take a look at that.
Nice.
We'll make note and arrive at some consistency. Okay. Let's move to 75. More helpful comments here. So, no, I need to flip the page, sorry. So this one has, number of things, there's the conformance to the, statutory changes and as well as, making it consistent with some of the steps in 380. But the one I want to draw your attention to is, the one that is about clarifying the methodology for adjusting the quantity of water that may be protected in stream when injury or enlargement is involved related to natural loss in order to prevent enlargement. So that's contained in here, so you want to look at that one probably. The above ground storage piece is in there, which of course I have noted our staff will be taking a closer look at, but you can take a look at that one and let us know if you've got comments. And then also there's conditioning in here. As well as, let's see, the other piece I would point out is. No, the other parts are more, I think, just technical steps in the process. So those would be the ones that I just draw your attention to. So of course, you're welcome to comment on any part of the provisions here. So I'll pause and let folks look through the rules here. And I see James and then Glenn. And then Kimberly.
Maybe.
Then maybe Kimberly. Okay.
Thanks. This is James with Trout Unlimited. My question is about the language at the bottom of page 32 that you referenced, Raquel. I'm just wondering how this changes the math. Basically, the language that was there before said that the natural losses would be prorated between, and now it's adjustment by subtraction. I guess turning this into a calculation is hard, and I'm just wondering what is actually changing, since the concept I think is staying the same.
So I'm gonna punt that one over to Lisa or Sarah. Was there, I think the first question, was there an intent to change the calculation? Or is the intent really just to clarify how we do the calculation?
Was that?
Okay.
Yeah, and just to provide, clear guidance to staff of this is how we're doing it.
Okay, so we think that this is not a change in the how we do it. We think this is just clarifying what we already do and trying to make it clear to the public and to staff that this is how we do this proration.
Thank you. That's helpful. I will. Our flow restoration folks have not had a chance to look at this one yet, so I'll run that by them and let you know if they have feedback. Thanks.
If you think we're changing it, then let us know, because I think that's not the intent. The intent is to just be clear about how we actually do it. So Glenn and then Kimberly.
Yeah, just clarify a little bit or walk through the process. So if you have a flood irrigated field that diverts 3 foot of water and 2 foot come back, is the leasing for 1 foot of the difference of the consumptive use?
Yeah, so anything that, well, I think what we're talking about here is, losing reaches. So if the in-stream reach, passes through an area where there's natural loss through the bottom, we're going to account for that. Reduce it from what's protected, so we're not protecting more than was actually, I guess, to prevent enlargement.
Oh, but also the use on the piece of property that is going back in the stream isn't the full diversion.
Right.
The difference is usually the consumptive use part of it. So is that what you're trying to protect? Or are you trying to protect the entire diversion because in other words, if you have a 3 foot diversion and 2 foot comes back in, that 2 foot's available for however many people downstream.
Right, so any of those
Return
return flows would be accounted for, because if we were to protect that, then we're taking away water that was previously available to downstream users.
And
So if you look at A is return, you're talking about return
right,
flows?
right.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah,
A,
yeah.
right, CA
Okay, I
here.
just want to make sure that's what we're
Yes.
doing.
yeah,
And then consumptive or like losses, do you take advantage, do you take also in consideration if you're going through a body of water, you're taking evaporative losses as well?
Yeah, we account for basically any loss. So you start at the point of diversion and you go down to the mouth of the river, or maybe even into, the tributary or the receiving stream. We will account for any kind of loss, any kind of return flows, any kind of evaporative loss, like out in the Bates area, just here to 7 John Day area. And so those are subtracted from the full amount of water that we can protect in stream. Because we can only protect what was actually there and what could actually be used.
and I would add to that it's known losses.
Okay.
Yes,
So there's
know
something
about it.
going on that maybe we haven't really thought about. Is efficiency of ditches, not only in district irrigation districts, but private ditches. So if you have 4 customers on there and 3 of them do an out in-stream lease that keeps it from diverting into that ditch, the person on the end of the ditch isn't gonna get his allotment anymore because you lose the efficiency of the wheeling agreement that you had through those ditches. And I don't think I think that needs to be addressed when you're doing these in-stream leases on the efficiency of the people, because there's people that are harmed, but they still have their allotment available, but they can't get it.
And we generally only regulate to the diversion from the source stream.
No, I realize
So
that, but
that would be,
there's a consequence in there that we are not taking, we're not protecting.
We'll take note of that. I don't know that we're gonna address that one in this rulemaking, Glenn.
It's becoming more and more
Yeah.
apparent out there as we do work.
Joan, did you have anything to add? I saw you, maybe these 2 already covered it, but I just wanted to see if you had anything
oh
to
no,
add.
I was just
Okay.
prompted, Sarah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect, okay.
She was helping.
Then I'll go to Jen.
Oh, I think Kimberly was done.
Oh, then I'll go to Kimberly and then Jen.
I guess I just want to raise a point similar to what I raised earlier, which is the In-Stream Water Right Act requires that the processing of in-stream and out-of-stream water rights be the same. And this has been something that has been raised in conversations for the last, 20 plus years, is that it seems that these standards where you're reviewing for injury and enlargement for in-stream water rights under 3 are not what you're doing to out-of-stream rights. So it seems like it should be the same. So in other words, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in the example Glenn gave where they're diverting 3 acre-feet per acre, 2 acre-feet is going back into the stream. For an in-stream water right, you get 1 acre-foot, but if it's an out-of-stream transfer, don't they get the full 3?
If there are return flows.
Yeah,
We would, if it was a out of stream use.
to an out-of-stream.
To an out of stream use, we would be accounting for those return flows if they're known.
So maybe the answer is to put that, I just feel like there needs to be parity between the sections, because I think when people look at the rules, that's not clear. So to the extent you're doing these to in-stream, I would say they need to also go in the out of stream. Because we have heard, and you know, this is, we don't generally do transfers, so it's anecdotal, but I guess I was under the understanding that the department was allowing, you know, if someone was super efficient and wanted to transfer their right, that you guys were allowing like the transfer of the full amount of water that could be used under the right. So if that's wrong, then that'll
It's
just
the
be
full amount of
clarified.
water that could be used under the right minus return flows and,
And losing reach and all that stuff. If it's, so
yeah,
maybe we just need to put, it would be great if you could put the same standards in the out of stream, so that it's clear that you guys are treating in stream and out of stream equitably. Because I think the story out there is you're not.
Okay.
Yeah.
go Jen, sorry.
I was gonna kind of tag on and reiterate the same thing, just moving water from a user to another user downstream should have the same standard. And if it's, like it should be listed in those rules for that type of transfer as well as for the in-stream transfer.
I'm hearing that you all want a new rule division.
No, it would be just be in the 380s. Yeah,
Just add to 380.
it's just a 380.
Just to 380, the one that's 80 pages long. Okay, we'll take that, we'll take a look at it. I only say that just in a funny way because I feel like we should have it in one spot and not keep repeating it in every single rule. And say, here's the standard over here. Because our rules are so long, that's why you all have been sitting here for so long. So fair points, we'll take a look at it, and also, I might be inclined to put it in one spot, so. Yes, let's go, Katie.
Okay, Kimberly, I don't know if you have this off the top of your head, but you were referring to the requirements need to be consistent between the in-stream and out-of-stream, and we're talking about in-stream transfers and leases right now. I see the part in ORS 537-349 pertaining to state agency in-stream water applications that refers to following, I look at the right one there. Following the provisions for obtaining a permit to appropriate
yeah.
water. So that's for state agency and stream water applications. Do you know where the corollary is?
No, that's the one I'll look.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'd be curious to see that. Thank you.
Yeah, I will look. I guess I can. But regardless, they are one or other. Go ahead. No, go
After
ahead.
you.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
And this is just, we do a lot of leasing with irrigation districts that have very inefficient ditches, and they're always very careful about how many people and how many acres they let lease on a given year, which is why they rotate them through. So I don't know, I mean, that's probably helpful if you're a district. I don't know if it's helpful if you're just a private shared ditch. But
Yeah.
the districts, at least in our basin, do try to manage that when they're leasing. So they don't, so that they're still able to deliver to the people still on the ditch.
So I appreciate you trying to answer Glenn's point, and I don't, like, we've taken note of Glenn's point, and I kind of followed a bunch, so there's questions I have about it, but, there are questions, so if you want to follow up on that, so we will get that.
With the similar questions. First two, moving.
Yeah.
Downstream.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, yeah. Okay. Not seeing any more. Okay, Chris.
Oh, this is really picky, but I think under large D, it says two CB, does it wanna say three CB? Any known areas of natural loss under large D,
Under three.
does it wanna say three CB?
So there's three B. Oh, are you, I'm sorry, where are you at?
So
Are you talking about the numbering or are you talking about a reference?
I think he's in.
under two B, D. Does it wanna say
Yeah.
under,
Page 32.
Three B D?
Yeah, it's actually three.
it wants to be
uh,
three CB.
large.
It's just, I don't, it's just,
I think it's,
The reference to the paragraph there.
I think it's three CB.
Yeah, 2C. That's right.
It's pointing down to the calculation of losses.
Yeah, good catch.
Thank you.
okay, they know what you're talking about. I still am lost. So they've got it down and they all say, aha. So I'm gonna move along. Thank you, Chris, for catching that. This is why we have a team here. And it's not just me, so.
three.
Okay, thanks for catching that. Anything else on 75? Jen? I don't even have to look up.
Just leave it on. This is the last time I have this. And it says, for A. Cancel the existing water rights affected by the in-stream transfer application. That kind of rarely happens.
Should we cancel the existing portion?
Yeah, I think.
Because this is a
portion.
transfer, so it'd be permanent, right?
Yeah,
But
I think it's the portion, because we kind of, at least.
Well,
or do we issue new certs?
yeah, we issue new certificates,
Yeah,
we'll
there
issue
you
a
go.
remaining right for what's not placed in stream.
Yeah, so this
Right, but we've done a lot of transfers in our basin and the district kind of lives on with all these transfers.
If it's a district, right?
Right,
she's talking about living.
Living certs.
yeah, living certs.
We don't address that in there. I didn't know that.
Certificates, yep. Thank
Okay,
you, Jen.
so
That was the only thing.
good catch, Jen. You've given us more work because both of them are frantically writing living certs. Who loves water law? Yes, we have something called living certs.
Thank you.
Thank you for catching that. This is why you all are here. You're catching all the things. Okay.
Ask a clarifying question. Do you think I'll let you answer. Do you
I've
think,
lost control of the RAC. Here, go for it.
do you think just modifying it to say cancel the portion of the existing water right? Would be
The
adequate? That was
existing
just-
water
If
right
applicable.
or a portion.
That's apparently her favorite words. If applicable.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Self-centered.
With a comma.
With
Yes.
comma. Make sure there's commas. Okay. Folks, I know that you're online and you're not getting to have as much fun as we are in the room here.
Because I missed the cookies.
You've missed the cookies. Okay, so I'm not seeing any other hands. Okay, so let's go to 76 here. So 76 has lots of green on it, which means there's things you all will want to look at. So one is modifying the description which is, again, I'll just flag the use of stored water. We're gonna have more conversations about with staff. We will bring that issue back. So it is clarifying the description of rates that can be leased in stream. It's also, the storage piece is again integrated into this. And then it's also, removing the requirement that the application contain conditions to. Oh, so this is a nuance here. We currently require the applicant to provide conditions to avoid injury or enlargement, which is odd, because that's usually what we do. So we're striking that out of there, because that doesn't quite make sense. And we're also removing the language related to the limitation of water protected in streams. So that ENAF conversation that we had, that plays into this rule here. And then we're also, we're doing more things, providing more detail as it relates to lesser, and, there's, provisions around, that I would say are more cleanup. But the other thing I would want to flag for you all is something that I think at least one member of this RAC will be very excited about. No, sorry, two at least, which is that we will allow that if the lesser is a district, written authorization from each district user involved in the lease is on file at the district and available upon request. This is more consistent, I believe, what we already do for transfers. And it's an abnormality here in terms of our processes to require it for leases. It's also something that is very burdensome to our staff and to the districts, and we agree that it should be changed to this provision. So I'll pause there and see what items you all want to discuss. So Jen?
On that 4B, we really appreciate that a lot. Does that also include water conveyance agreements that can be held? I think that's mentioned someplace else, but I don't know if it needs to be mentioned in both places.
Yeah, I think I didn't include it and I should have.
Okay.
Because it was the quitclaim deeds and the conveyance agreements and yes.
Okay, so we're making note, we will update that to include the water conveyance agreements. Jesse.
Here, sorry,
Hello.
I just wanted to let you know, and echo what Jen said, we really appreciate 4B. That's very helpful to the districts, especially with how many leases we process. So thank you kindly, and we'll keep those records updated if this goes through.
Okay. Are there comments on this?
Just a quick question on 2C,
Yes,
the new language, can you explain that? Is it like a third party coming in and paying somebody to do good work? Like, what does it mean? So if the lessee is not the department, say, there's an individual organization who will provide compensation to the lessor. So is that like a, third party over here says, oh, I want that water in stream, I'll pay you to put it in the stream?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Jen, do you want to answer? No.
Yeah,
Yes, organization,
you know,
I think is the biggest one in the state, so in terms of doing that.
We do a lot of this, and so does Strat Unlimited, and we're always listed as the lessee.
so it's like a
And-
land conservation. sort of.
Yeah, and it's also, us assisting with the paperwork, even if we're not paying the landowner for the lease.
So it's a form of a trust in a way, kind of? Like a.
I don't know if it's, I wanna be careful because trust can have some legal,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know that it's like that, so.
when I think of like, or like a land conservancy or something, Is it sort of like a water conservancy in that respect?
Yes.
So Bill
Yeah.
Gates came into Oregon and said, I got $10 billion and I'm gonna throw all this water in stream. That theoretically could happen. I mean, I don't wanna slow us down. Okay. Thank you, I've got my answer.
I'm not seeing any, sorry, Chris, you're at the limits of my knowledge and ability to respond. That's why I'm just smiling. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know more than that.
I was
so.
just literally imagining the scenario.
Yeah.
He would be involved.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other hands on 75. So. I feel like. Oh, sorry, was that 76?
It was 76, yeah.
Okay, sorry, I've confused myself here. Thank you all. Again, just testing to make sure folks are awake here. The answer is you are, so that's good. So 77. 77 of Division 77. This one, a lot of this has the stuff that you've seen before around electronic documents, public notice, and I think the cleanup around injury and enlargement. And then it does go into that storage right piece again and trying to clarify that. So the language that you've been seeing appearing is also in this one. And I'm not seeing any hands for this one, so I'm gonna move to 79. And 79. This is in the split season leasing, which was actually made permanent in 2023 legislation. And it is, I think the one I point out is that it is providing better clarity around the measurement and reporting pieces of the split season leasing split. Yeah, so. Okay, moving into the deletion of 80. So this one is deleting provisions that we don't see a clear line of authority for. Or a situation where this would exist. So this rule is repealed. Because it's not clear to us how the department would ever reach a determination that an in-stream water rate has been forfeited. And then on top of that, if you look at our statutes, of who can protest a proposed cancellation, it's not really the department, they're held in trust. They're not owned necessarily by the department in the same manner. So there's just a whole suite of reasons why we look at this, this division and wonder why it exists and are therefore proposing it for deletion. It's held in trust by the department. So we don't see how this one actually works. So, Chris.
You said you wonder why it exists. That was my question. Is the department unclear as to how this got in the rules? It's Orwellian, so it's like, it makes absolutely no sense. It's just incomprehensible. So like, the history is very interesting to me. And
We haven't had time to dig through the history, but we don't see that it is, we don't see how we get there with our current laws.
did somebody slip it in as a practical joke? I mean, it's just.
Because the department is well known for its practice.
Right. Well, I mean, you know, did the Russians hack this back in 1988? You know, I mean, okay, well,
I'm gonna leave your question on the record is, I don't know.
well, that actually pleases me, because
Yeah,
I would be concerned if somebody did know. If you haven't, yeah.
We might, we could probably try to dig through the history, which may or may not address this, but what we do know is that we're not seeing how this works under today's authorities, so we think it needs to be struck. Okay. As much as I think it's interesting to go and look at the history of the agency, we do have limited time, and so sometimes we haven't done that digging. Kimberly?
Yeah, can we go back to split season cases really quickly?
Certainly.
Just one quick comment is you guys added stuff to clarify the measurement, but I'm actually not seeing language related to reporting and both measurement and reporting. It says that they will consult with the water master with the proper devices for measurement and reporting, but then when you get down into the nits, it doesn't talk about reporting.
What's the section?
I am in
Page 41.
0079 and it's down.
You're right, but,
Subsection, God, this is one of those ones, it's
Is it
three.
Yeah.
D.
So two,
Little
it
d,
says
3.
measurement and reporting requirements to prevent enlargement, but then
Yeah, but-
3 doesn't actually talk
Yeah.
about the reporting side, it only talks about
The
measurement.
measure, yeah,
Or mentions reporting, but
Yeah,
it just doesn't say how often. Anyways, small, just nothing for you guys to look at.
thank you. Yeah, 4 does talk about reporting, but yes, it doesn't specify more detail.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Not seeing any more hands here. Takes us to. Not me. We're having technical difficulties here.
Not on my screen.
My cursor is disappearing. It's over there.
figure it out within 37 seconds. We're all close up.
Yeah.
Is it the
What's that,
TV?
Netflix show House of Dynamite? Yeah, it's probably the TV, yeah.
Oh, yeah, is it okay?
Yeah.
Wait, you have to. press
Where's the okay button?
Prior to. 15 seconds.
We're gonna find out what shuts off here pretty quick.
Is it the other remote? I mean, there's only TV remote.
Okay, so folks online, we're gonna take a break.
We're having a.
There we go.
You forgot you
Everybody need a break. We don't get through Division 77 and then we'll take a break.
Right in this house and then.
I just knew if I said we were gonna take a break, it would get fixed, right? That's how life works,
Yes,
right?
exactly right.
Yeah,
Thanks for calling me. I didn't see that one.
okay, thank you, Mindy, for moving swiftly on that one. So, 100. Precedents of future uses. So this one is another one I've noticed for us to look at. This rule is inconsistent with statute, and so it is amended to more closely follow the process described in statute. The statute provides that the department, not the commission, will make a determination while conducting a review of the project in accordance with our water right process, which is under 537-170. And so the changes align the rule with statute and the water right application processing steps. So this is an interesting one where the statute actually says the department will do this. And so it also says that we'll follow this process. So this whole thing just kind of this odd process is written in the rule today. So this is making it so it actually fits within our existing process, right? So we would go through do we say this one was gonna go through the initial review and then the PFO? No. Yes, it would go into the PFO, so.
So ideally, somebody would, if someone had that request, they could come in with that request as part of their application, and then when we notice an initial review, then people are aware of the petition for precedence, but if they don't and it's after the IR, then I think we would have to go back out and renotice.
Yes, because that's right, when we talked about it, we recognized that it may come in after, and so then the department would accept comment on the petition. And then we would fold that into our consideration on the PFO. So that's kind of how we made it so it'd be more of a streamlined process as opposed to some of the pieces that were originally outlined here. Chris.
The word petition has come up recently. I usually hear that word under the context of the APA procedures 183.390, which is petitioning, and I think it's a uniform rule, I don't know. So what do you guys mean here by petition? Do you mean filing a petition under the 183 chapter
No,
390?
no, I think it is the more general term is defined in the dictionary as a formal written request. So I just Googled that while I was, because I was like, that's a great question. Also, let's see what petition is. And so yes,
So it's
it's
not
more
like-
about a formal written request versus it is not a petition in the sense of a contested case or a petition in the sense of
Right.
a petition for judicial review.
So my only comment that I suppose would be is maybe just clarify what petition means in this case. Maybe you don't think so, but.
Yeah, and you know, since you brought it up, I'm now wondering if the statute
Doesn't say anything.
says petition or if we can use
It doesn't.
a different word, because
Yeah, the statute doesn't say petition. It's
537.
it's
352.
352.
352. Oh, I see. Yeah, okay. So we might just. We'll either look at defining petition or we will look at changing the word that's used in saying written request or something like that. So we'll take a look at that one. Thank you. Okay, anything else on precedents and uses? Okay, so I'm gonna take us to two new rules that we have put in here, so that's 105 and 110. And they're essentially, trying to provide better, we know there's been an interest in renewals of leases and, we've tried to provide one, clarity around what we do. I think there was maybe one word, one sentence that acknowledged renewals previously. And so we've tried to provide one, greater clarity that this process exists, and two, what the process entails. I'll note on this one that, the statute does require for us to process a lease that we, public notice it, and that we have that 21 days there, that's a requirement, right? So even if it's a renewal, we do have to go through that process. So that's what, so 105 and 110 is really about, renewals. And so I'd be curious to see if there's any thoughts on that one. Or questions.
Does this follow the underlying statute?
So the underlying statute is pretty short, right? It doesn't have. Well, it doesn't talk about a renewal, right? It just talks about leasing generally. And then I think it says, basically, most of the stuff is defined in the rule. So if you look at the statute, it's what, 537,348?
Yep.
Which I can, let me just pull that one up real quick.
It's like just one page, two paragraphs. Yeah. Almost, well, four or five paragraphs.
6 sections.
Yeah, most of the sections are actually more about split season, split rate. But the statute's very brief. It's what it comes down to, so.
It does say the term of the lease may be renewed.
Oh, it does, okay,
And there's-
so it does acknowledge renewals. But that's about the extent that it says about them. Kimberly.
I need to look at this more, but just want to flag, it seems like, and maybe I'm missing it, but it seems like there needs to be something in there that the original use, the underlying use could still take place. This came up in a hydro conversion case years ago where the project was decommissioned, and so technically it should have been, the water rights should have been converted to an in-stream right under the conversion statutes, but they just kept renewing leases, even though there was no project there for the water to go back to. And then they wanted to use it for a new use. Does that make sense? So
It
there's
makes sense,
yeah,
but I feel like that's a quirk of hydro versus
this,
the
okay.
leasing, because it's been beneficial, like a lease restarts the clock essentially, right? And
Right,
so to then say, oh, they must be able to go back to it. Well, they technically have restarted the clock, they have 5 years to go back to it, right? Versus a hydro conversion. That's different because the statute says they shall convert, right?
yeah, but this was, I guess the point is these are not permanent transfers, and so, they're leases. And so theoretic, as I understand it, the underlying right, like you still have to be able to make that use, even though you're not using it. So in other words, like you have an irrigation, say you have, let's move away from hydro. say you have an irrigation right on this plot of land and you lease it in stream, it's not transferred in stream because the idea is it's temporary. And so that plot still has to be able to be irrigated, even though they're not irrigating. You can't like build a city on that plot of land. And then, you know what,
Yeah,
maybe
I
you can
agree.
explain it better, Glenn. But
They still need to be able to be used
yes.
on the original purpose of the water.
Exactly, even though they're leasing it in stream.
Unless it's been quitclaimed.
So if they can't, then what? If they
Separate
can't,
the
then
ownership.
what?
Cancel the water.
Well,
Or
it's-
permanently
If this,
transfer it
so
in
if we're
stream.
talking about renewals, right, the renewal would have reset the Cochran forfeiture. Or not the renewal, the original lease would have reset the Cochran forfeiture. So we'll take note of it and, take a closer look at I get the premise of what you all are saying, I just don't know that there's legally. Hold on, there's legally, I don't think there's, I'm not sure there's anything there that we can do.
Look at 54610.
So,
We have quitclaims that regularly renew and have done so for a long time. In our basin,
Yeah.
where the ownership of the water right is separated from the land. So the irrigation is not necessarily happening there anymore, or, you know, or it's had a city built on top of
Yeah.
it. But they just haven't found a place to put the new water yet, so they park it in stream. And hold it in a quitclaim separate from the land ownership.
I do agree that at some point.
It hasn't been transferred yet to a new.
Transfer it or don't, you know, like.
Yeah,
I'd like to get out of the land of the perpetual leases just because that's workload, right? And if, but. Lauren,
Yeah, I was just gonna chime in that my understanding is that by leasing in stream, you're meeting the beneficial use. So by then saying you have to, there would be no incentive to lease in stream if you also have to be beneficially using it. I mean, because why would you? And there's lots of reasons why we may need to lease in stream for a period of time, whatever that time is for, I mean, for like irrigation, maybe they're building new pipes or they're piping and that takes years, or maybe an industrial use, it has changed and they're using new industrial or that it's taking some time to develop. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why in-stream leasing is targeted and it's a good program. And I don't know why you would disincentivize it by saying, if you can't use it in exactly this way, you're no longer going to get the benefit of the beneficial use of an in-stream lease program, because that's kind of a point.
Yeah, and just to clarify, Lauren, I wasn't saying you have to use it concurrently. It's just, this came up in the Rock Creek case. And so maybe I'll look at the hydro. I'll try and weave that together and look at the hydro.
Yeah.
And see if,
cause there's hydro conversions, and I just like.
Yeah, but
you know, but
but it was a
And there's
lease,
leasing.
it was an in-stream lease that
I don't
triggered
wanna leave.
that whole, pardon? Yeah,
I don't wanna leave.
yeah. So,
but the hydro project is gone.
yeah, the hydro project was
I know,
taken out.
I think I'm just
Didn't
like
exist.
putting it over in the
Yeah.
hydro bucket because there's actually a
Storage.
statutory provision that is not 537.348, right? That pertains to hydro conversions.
Yeah, yes.
And so that's why I'm thinking that belongs, my compartmentalizing belongs over there, and I promised. At least one member of the RAC, we're not adding in additional divisions, so in my head that. It fits over, or new issues, because I think that division is actually on our plates, isn't it? So. I don't know, maybe we need to go look at that.
Yeah, it's a
but-
different, I agree, the hydro conversion law is very
Yeah.
different. It's a
Didn't the
different
court
law.
rule on that issue though, so isn't it kind
Yeah,
of like,
yes, they did. So,
yeah.
I just want to make sure.
If we take it out of the hydro context, then
Okay.
that would be my question, is let's set aside hydro conversions, does the same
Oh, yeah.
issue still apply? Right? Okay,
Yes, and Lauren, we're not, I'm not trying to disincentivize in-stream leases, so
yeah,
rest assured. Just want to make sure they're not a loophole for other things.
Okay, Leah.
Yeah, so. Yeah, this one, 105. There were a lot of references to the prior approved final order. And I was trying to figure out, is this one of the ones where now you could just have a PFO that becomes a final order without a final order being issued? 'Cause if so, then is it referring to that same thing or?
A lease would be straight to final order,
Okay.
so it's a
So
different
it does,
process.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great. Well. You all have made it for Division 77. Yeah, we should just have like little. Need to bring little party toys. Okay, so, thanks to all of you that are online, that are sitting through this, and providing good feedback, as well as all of you in the room. And so we're gonna take a break. And, actually, before we take a break, I wanna see. No, we're gonna take a break. So let's go ahead and take a break, and we will keep moving along with some other things.
How long will the break be?
5 to 10 minutes. All right.
Yes.
So I know on, are we on back on all these?
Yeah.
I know on days when we are in an 8-hour long meeting, sorry, 7.5. I gotta be accurate with my time here. But it actually might be shorter, because maybe we'll get out of here early today. But sometimes it's good to stand up. So I just want to encourage folks, whether you're online or in the room, if you need to stand up in the middle, that is okay. This is awkward.
Or stand up.
So we still have food here if you need fuel.
She doesn't need
to
drive.
I suspect we will be out of here a little early, but we'll see, because sometimes you all surprise me, you dig in, you find that energy and you just keep going. So we'll see where we are at the end of the day, but our plan now is to transition to a couple things here, which is to start discussions. And notice how I underlined the start discussions, so we'll probably need to have more conversations on the statement of need, racial equity impacts, and fiscal and economic impacts of the rulemaking. I know you all are still digesting what's all in the rules, so we will not expect to, if you have further comments, we expect you will have further comments on that. How's that? So, but we do want to get into at least providing an overview of what that all entails and seeing if you have any initial thoughts, which will help us continue to work on these documents as we then bring back one for you to actually look at. The other piece then is, we'll revisit some of the prior divisions, and that one, I think, I am intending to keep it short. There's a couple ones that I just want to highlight for you all in there. We're welcome to talk about any of them, but I suspect one, I know you all haven't looked at it, and two, I think that we did pretty clear explanations, and so as you skim through it over the next couple of weeks, I think you will quickly know if there's any that you'd like us to bring back for further conversation. Laura.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on the 320 revised proposed draft rules. Thank you, Chris, for pointing this out. I had the 300 summary sheet attached to the front of that. So I have re-emailed out both of those documents to all the folks on the RAC, and I've printed them out as well. So we'll hand those out if we get to those. So and I'll update everything on the website, and I'll resend out the correct combined version, but I didn't want people to get confused when we got there. So check your email if you got time.
Okay, so we've got some fun noises going on right here. Bridge.
Communicating remotely.
Yeah, but before we start, so just like for context, right? So we have our notice of proposed rulemaking, and that we're gonna have the draft rules. Those will be in the notice. Those rule summaries that we've been working on, those will be in the notice. But then also there's this requirement, we've got to include these additional statements. So the statement of need, statement of racial equity impacts, and the statement of fiscal and economic impacts. So we're going to step through those, and we're going to let Bryn start out kind of going through the statement of need. And she's got an outline put together. And again, this is discussion, so we expect to see hands raised and cards up. And I guess a question for Bryn, you want me to drive, or are you on?
If you can drive, that'd be great, yes.
All right.
There's no hard copies for at least the statement of need, so.
There's no hard copies for any of them today.
For any of them, okay.
But,
The start of the conversation.
yeah, but the presentation itself will be shared, so you will have the content that's in the slides.
Thanks, Laura. So hi, everyone. Bryn Hudson, I'm a legislative coordinator. It's been a while since I've talked to all of you actually in one of these meetings, so it's good to see everyone. So as Laura mentioned, statement of need is one of the items that goes along with a notice of rulemaking, and the statement of need is essentially exactly what it sounds like. Why do we need the rules? And how do the rules that are being proposed
intend to meet that need. So next slide, please, Laura. So the next two slides, as Laura mentioned, kind of give a rough outline of what, when we eventually put pen to paper and get a hard copy. This will be a rough outline of essentially the concepts that we are considering for this document. And those of you who were involved in the legislative session have probably heard this spiel once or twice from me, but I think it is a good reminder. So first and foremost, backlogs and slow processing times for both the water right transactions process, that is water rights, transfers, in-stream, all the good stuff, COBUs, mapping, everything we've been talking about. And the contested case processing timelines have caused kind of consternation both for customers and within the department. So we know it, you all know it, and that's really kind of culminated in multiple calls for action over the last couple of years. So that, we can see that in our customer service metrics through our KPMs and through our interactions with the public. We have the 4 water attorneys letter that was produced last year or in 2024. That was commissioned by Governor Kotek, that laid out the call to action to modernize the way that we do things and make processes more efficient. We have a signing letter on our budget as well as the fee bill, for the water rights fee bill in the 2025 session from the governor as well, noting that the agency needs to make meaningful progress in improving processes and efficiencies. That was in concert with the 2025 legislative efforts, specifically House Bills 3342, which dealt with the water rights processing improvements, 3544, which dealt with the contested case process improvements, and then a very small portion of Senate Bill 1154 relating to consolidation of domestic wells and groundwater quality areas is also addressed in this rulemaking as well.
Do you want comment now or do you want?
If I can finish the slide and then we can, yeah. And then the last kind of call to action is one that I think is really important to highlight is our internal call to action. Agency also acknowledges that the way that the things are working right now, they could be better and they should be better and we can do better. So that's another call to action that kind of highlights our motivation to work with you all on these rules to kind of mirror and elevate those other calls to action that have come externally as well as what we're feeling internal. So we have another slide, but Kimberly, I think if you have comments on
Well, I was
the calls
just,
to action, you can absolutely.
yeah, I was just gonna say that as far as how you frame it, rather than saying backlogs and slow processing, much of the, I think as you know, much of the discussion during the legislative session mirrors some of what you said in those 5 points, which is, it was more about water right improvements and efficiencies. Some people, framed it as slow processing, but not everyone. So I would encourage you to use the language that was used by the governor and some of the bills. That was water right improvements, the need for water right improvements and efficiencies.
James.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's like-
The glass is half full.
Yes. I mean, because otherwise,
I think it's both. I think
Yeah.
that from our standpoint, it taking 2 to 3 years, or in the contested case backlog, 20+ years is not where the agency wants to be. So from our standpoint, it is the slow processing. I do think there is an and to it, which that you're pointing out that we don't have captured there, which is the improvements and efficiencies, I think, if I'm recapping.
yeah, I mean, I think the language that was used during the session was improvements to get at things like slow processing. I'm just, to the extent things are put on paper, that kind of messaging could really, I think, work against the department personally. So we're just trying to make it a bit more positive. Would be my suggestion. And there were also, I mean, another part of it was that, and this was raised, I think Brenda, you probably heard this was raised in front of the committee, is, you know, there is also the piece, you know, part of the slow processing of some of the, you know, water rights transfers, whatnot, is a lack of sufficient funding for the agency. So again, we just don't, I think we want to set it up so we can continue to improve these processes and not throw you guys under the bus. Point. Comment.
I second that wholeheartedly.
I think staff would appreciate some of the comments I just heard from you guys.
Yeah, but, you know.
Mark,
Well, I have to tell you, there are some permits that are coming out rather slowly. I'm still waiting on some fish persistence permits to come out of ODF and W. So, you know, as polite as I'd like to be, there is, in my mind, there are permits that take far too long for the department to process. And so I don't have any consternation about suggesting that the department has been slow on issuing permits over the years. I think that's a reflection of the legislature's commitment to natural resources, and without additional funding for the department, aside from these process improvements, I still think that the department will suffer from underfunding and as a result, not be able to process permits as quickly as we would all prefer. So I do think that there is a counter argument to it. I don't disagree about trying to make this more positive, but the fact of the matter is there are permits that take as much as a decade or more to get out of the department. And I don't think we can gloss that over. Thank you.
so, I guess I'll say that I agree with both of you. And I think there is a way for us to include both of those things in the rules because, you know, Kimberly, to your point during the session, some of our messaging is this is a funding issue and it's a process improvement issue. It's both. The agency is leaning in and saying, we are going to work on the process side of it so we can be as efficient as possible with our, and now I'm not taking notes because I'm talking, by the way, so the staff that are taking notes, if you want to capture any of this gold here, I'm sure none of it's probably gold, but if we want to, so the agency is digging in on the process side to be as efficient as possible with our limited resources, right? That's what we can control, right? We can't control our funding, but what we can control is as much as possible the part of the processing challenges that we have. So we are digging in on that. That's part of this rulemaking. And that will help with some of it. Does it solve the issue completely? No, right? We know that. But at least we'll be as efficiently processing these as possible with the limited resources. And then at that point, it goes back to, this is a resource issue, right? So it's a both and I think that we should be acknowledging that as well. So I appreciate both Mark and Kimberly, your comments, and I think someone else commented, and Chris, thank you all. It's that late in the day where I'm gonna start forgetting things, so, but I think we should be making those points across the board, so I appreciate that from all of you. Kimberly?
Yeah, and Mark, I wasn't trying to pick a fight. I think we're saying the same thing. I just hope that the way that this is framed.
We can fight about substantive stuff. This is just about the need for the rules. So I'm not, Yeah, I agree with you, Kimberly. I mean, I'm not trying to be antagonistic in any way, shape, or form. I just think that there are two sides to this coin, as Raquel so eloquently described there. So you know, I'm perfectly fine with the approach. I just think that we have to acknowledge, as Raquel pointed out, that we can be as efficient as we possibly can, but without the adequate resources, you can only go so far. That's really what my point, what I intended to make a point of. Thank you.
And that's actually, and so Mark, just to finish my thought, is that's exactly what I am thinking. So I'm just cautioning the department in how you frame this so that, say, a legislator looks at this. We don't want them to think that this is the sum total of the answer. Like we need.
That has been a
We
concern.
need,
Yes, I
yes, we
agree.
need funding,
Yeah.
and so we need to phrase it so that
Yeah.
you guys aren't thrown under the bus in 2-4 years if
Yeah.
you don't get enough funding. So Mark, I think you and I agree, is what I'm trying to say.
All right.
Let the record note that Kimberly Priestley and Mark Landauer actually agree on something. Thank you. History has been made.
All right, that's a good,
Maybe
a
we
good
should stop
segue.
while we're ahead.
I know, seriously, just cut it. So in kind of recognition of that need, to streamline and modernize, a lot of what you'll see in these rules are concepts aimed at reducing processing times, doing things that prevent future backlogs, ensuring a clear and consistent process. Raquel mentioned earlier that if we don't have 14 different processes that we're constantly switching between, and we have more consistency, our staff can be more consistent and more efficient in how they are moving applications through the process. And then promote more timely and informed decisions while also ensuring due process. So there's that balance of faster doesn't always mean better. And so there's that balance there that goes with getting timely and informed decisions while also providing ample opportunity for folks to engage in dialogue through the formal pathways with the department. So if we look at those overarching needs and goals of the rules, how do these rules that we're proposing actually meet that need? So in addition to implementing the 3 bills that I highlighted earlier, we've kind of gone over ad nauseum what are in those bills. So I won't belabor that. In addition to implementing those legislative process improvements in the 2025 and other concepts that have passed in other legislative sessions, the rules are seeking to improve clarity and transparency of the rules. So if we're gonna do something a certain way, the rules should say how we're gonna do it, so everybody knows, both internally and the public, including applicants. Align like processes for consistency and predictability. That goes back to the, instead of having 14 different processes, let's try to narrow down that number. Maybe we can have 5 that are all kind of the same. Update statutory and rule references and language alignment. So this goes back to the statute has changed. The rules need to be reflected to reflect those changes. If there are references that are outdated, we want to be sure that someone who is reading the rules, an applicant, or member of the public who's reading our rules, can navigate what the process actually is and they're not looking at the process from 20 years ago. Updating small things like grammar and spelling corrections. We don't need to belabor why that's important. And then other policy and process improvements that kind of span multiple different other categories. So this is when we think about the forfeiture changes, the mapping criteria, things like that, other process improvements and policy improvements that we think help us meet that need for lower processing times, reducing backlogs, getting things clear and consistent, and getting stuff out the door in a timely manner, in an informed way, while also ensuring folks have adequate opportunity for public input and public process. So again, this is the kind of the skeleton, it's the framework of a document that ultimately you will all see at some point, you just don't have it today. This is more of an outline, that's how I would treat it. Similar as the last one, any feedback, comments, things that are missing, things that we should refine, any and all feedback is appreciated on this.
I just have one and it kind of follows on the earlier discussion. And it's the second bullet, prevent future backlogs. Is it gonna be more like reduce? I know the goal was to prevent.
We're ambitious here. You know, I think it's a fair question, because as long as there's having present backlogs creates future backlogs, right? Because you're still trying to work through it. That said, I think there are some program areas that we would not consider to have a backlog, or that are close to not having a backlog. So I think we
Yeah.
should still be aspirational.
Yeah.
That, but to your point in the conversation earlier, we should also be careful, right, on that front. But in our ideal world, we would be able to move some of these processes forward in a manner that does prevent future backlogs. So I think we're trying to do both. But one of the things that is on my mind about this, and so maybe we do strike the second bullet, is that if you reduce processing times, you are preventing future backlogs, right? And I think that we tend to talk about backlogs, but what is a backlog? Well, the backlog is in the eye of the beholder, right? If you think it's okay that it takes 3 years for your application to get processed, guess what? There is no backlog. If you don't, then there is, right? And so that's one of the challenges we have, and that's why we've kind of been moving away from saying backlogs to saying processing times, because that's the part that concerns folks, is the processing time, right? Or the number of years that a protest has been pending, or fish persistence has been pending, right? Some of those things. So that's, I think, where we're trying to go, because that is something that's what people care about, right? They don't care if you have 500 applications. If you get through all of them in the time they expect, well, then there's no backlog. Yep, it's a fair point.
Got Leah here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I agree, because when I saw prevent future backlogs, I was thinking like, what does that mean? You're gonna process things same day? Like, that's not possible. There's no backlog at all of any kind. You don't have more than one application pending at a time. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and it's then like, well, what's your workload versus what's a backlog? When do you define that? And no, we're not gonna go through the whole process of trying to like define that, in this process. So yes, thank you all for bringing this up.
There's also the inability to control how many we get in for a process.
Belabor, I think really you're responding to the needs of the public and the state legislative intent. As we move forward, I mean, you're modernizing things, but it's really the response to the needs of Oregon.
We have a saying here, for Oregon, right? Like, that feels like a very for Oregon moment.
They're not gonna say it at volume, we're not gonna scream it.
No.
So, well, Katie mentioned, which I've been thinking about this whole time, is like, it depends on how many you get. And so now that it's really hard to get a water right, the water rights have become an incredibly scarce commodity, as if they weren't already. So now the water right transaction or the transfer process is going to see an uptick, because that's really all you can do with water rights anymore. They're going to become as valuable as they can chase water across the state. So does the Water Resource Department ever like reach into some kind of oracle and figure out like what's the projected number of like water right transactions that will occur over the next 3 to 5 to 10 years, like water right transfers? Or does anybody plan ahead for like that sort of thing?
I think our projections are limited to when we are doing our fee increase exercise. Well, it's not an exercise, but then feeds into the budget process, right? Because we have to know how many applications we expect. So we're looking, it is less of a oracle one, but more of here's what we've historically received, and then sometimes we will either curve it up or down based on what we're seeing. For example, or we know is coming. So for example, the groundwater allocation rules, we included in our projection a decline in new water right applications. I don't know if we included an uptick on transfers or not as part of that, but so yes, we do to some
projections, we didn't, yeah, for these.
we do to some extent, but it's not a perfect science and we can always be wrong, right? So we don't put too much energy in it.
But your groundwater section that's doing all that modeling could sort this out nicely. Let's just put their computer to work on that. Model that.
You gotta prioritize their time, Mark.
Yeah, I gather we're still talking about the second bullet, am I correct? Because
Anything on this slide?
well, I still think that mentioning backlogs is important, and maybe the adjective that we use is minimize future backlogs rather than prevent, because I do think that ultimately, regardless, you can still get all the money in the world. There's still going to be potential backlogs here, and so minimizing, I think, is a really good goal. And preventing future backlogs is a wonderful goal, but I don't think it can necessarily be achieved. There are going to be unusual circumstances. You just can't prevent that. But minimizing those backlogs, I think, is a fair approach to address the broad swath of concerns. And just one last thing, I apologize. I do have to leave the meeting at 3 o'clock today. So I just wanted to give everybody a heads up. It's not for a lack of interest. Thank you.
But you've been a trooper sticking with us this long. I did see, that, there was some head nods here. You've now disturbed the whole RAC though, because now they're all giggling and wanting to be you and be able to leave, so. Okay, so thank you, Mark, for that, and I do really like the feedback on minimizing. You got a lot of head nods on that one, so we will incorporate that. So with that, anything else on this slide? Okay, let's go to the next slide.
We could take fiscal and economics, since Mark's leaving, we could at least start that and then come back with racial equity, or how do you wanna just proceed?
Let's keep rolling.
Okay, so another requirement and notice of proposed rulemaking, we have to take a look at whether the new rules will have any impacts on racial equity. The statute is pretty sparse as far as guidance. It's simply a statement identifying how adoption of the rule will affect racial equity in this state, and that's the exact language. To try and parse that out, we kind of ask ourselves a couple of questions. This is what the department does. First, think about who's most likely to be impacted by the proposed rules, and then ask the question as to whether those impacts are racially equitable or not. And then another component that we include in this statement is we describe our efforts to engage with Oregon's 9 federally recognized tribes. And what the result of that engagement was. And we've added that was in response to tribal comments we received, particularly during the groundwater allocation rulemaking. There's really no place to, because we have to use the Secretary of State's very rigid upload software program to input all the information, and there's no place to really describe tribal engagement. So, but we do recognize that it's very important. So this is where we've chosen to put it. In addition to, if there's some economic specific impacts, that could obviously go into the fiscal and economic impact section. So this is a discussion though. So kind of wanted to open it up and talk about who do we think is most likely to be impacted by the proposed rules. You can just brainstorm. Like, is it?
And so we're putting these questions out here. If you have thoughts on it today,
Yeah.
please chime in. If you don't, that's okay.
Yeah,
We will
that's
come
okay
back to
too.
it. So
I mean, it's new applicants, existing applicants, there's third parties, there's the members of the public, but. Does anybody have finer points to put on, thinking about who is likely to be most impacted by what we're proposing here?
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say the group, the way I'm seeing it around this room, isn't necessarily the most qualified to answer this question. So just saying, I've checked with some folks I know.
thank you, Chris. So, we are gonna be working on these statements, so this isn't, you all are not the only source of information, Chris, so thank you for that. Do folks have any other comments on the questions on this slide? I know it's late in the day and, so I really want to be getting at like what comes top of mind. I don't want you all, digging deep at this point, because we will have more opportunities to talk about this. Kimberly, did that change your mind?
No, sorry, I just on the first one, given the huge gamut of rules that we're talking
Yeah.
about, it's not, I don't think there is someone who's, I think it's everyone. It's
Yeah, exactly.
in-stream, out-of-stream, farmers, cities, rafters, public. So I don't know.
Oregon citizens.
Yes.
Okay, that's helpful. I'll make sure we're taking a broad enough look.
I can explain a little bit about what goes into the tribal component. We typically summarize efforts to engage at the staff to staff level. So that would include reaching out to solicit participation on our RACs, as well as presenting at, they've got these quarterly staff to staff level meetings, the Natural Resources Work Group and the Cultural Resources Cluster. So we provide periodic updates as well as presentations. We send out letters from the director's office offering to engage at that staff to staff level, providing briefings, as well as inviting formal government to government consultation if that's of interest. And so as far as our RAC, this particular RAC goes, the invitation did go out to all 9 tribes. We had 2 tribes that thankfully took us up on our request for participation on the RAC. And we have heard from a couple of other tribes who we've provided. One requested a briefing and another one requested a consultation. And so we've done that, and those activities will be summarized as part of the racial equity impact statement, as well as any other engagement that happens between now and when the notice is published. So that's just a little more information. And then I see Carrie's hand up, so maybe it's
Yeah, let's go to Carrie.
related.
Hi, yeah, thank you. Carrie Morin, Handley, Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde, Office of Ceded Lands. I just wanted to make the point, and it's not to be in anybody's face, but it's true, that regarding, Oregonians and impacts, no one has suffered greater impacts than the tribes. Their rights were taken away for lands that they stewarded, including the waterways and the fisheries, and all the natural resources. And the treaties were signed prior to the 1905, is it 502, Oregon water law. So it just, I just want to make it clear from the tribe's perspective that really having in-stream water rights and figuring out the problem to solve Oregon's water problems with overallocation is paramount to the tribes and preservation of salmon species. And I think you all can see what the Klamath tribes went through and the dramatic changes that have already occurred because of that restoration. So I appreciate, this reference, and I just wanted to lay that out. And that, is just coming from our chief, tribal chief, Cheryl Kennedy, and, her perspective. And it's just, tribes are sovereign nations, and they really, really have not been cared for or recognized or treated in a proper manner historically. So this is vitally important, and I appreciate everybody's time and thought related to.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you. Any other comments? I was taking notes, Carrie. Any other comments on this slide and the questions on this slide? If not, we will move on to, and all of these things will be coming back, so let's move on to fiscal and economic impacts here, and Laura's gonna introduce us to what all's required. I suspect that all of you have already taken very detailed notes on your thoughts on this, and will be just ready to provide feedback. And by that, I mean, probably not today, but we'll see what you got. So, Laura, walk us through this. And this will also come back to everyone, probably with more details.
So usually when I do this, I use bullets, but I realize there are a lot of lawyers in this group, so I'm using exact language. Although I have tried to add some bolded text to help draw your eyes to probably the portion of the language that's of most interest. The statute's got a lot more detail as far as how we go about assessing fiscal and economic impacts. Supposed to look at those impacts on agencies, units of local government and the public. Utilizing available information, that's an important qualification. And we include the cost of compliance on small businesses as well. And that's kind of a separate, that's why we have fiscal and economic. There's sort of two analyses that are going on here. Small business has a very specific definition. For profit, independently owned, and 50 or fewer employees. You'll notice, well, let's see, what else here, as far as getting information on the number of small businesses that meet this criteria, we rely on the Office of Employment, and they don't have data on small farms. So for us, and we do think it's important to think about impacts on small farms, and that has to do with tax reporting. So they use tax reporting to track businesses, and farms don't necessarily go through that same IRS process, so they don't have that kind of data. So what we do rely on is USDA data pertaining to small farms, and you look at the 50 acres or fewer as sort of that criteria. It's not required under the statute. That's just something additional that we'll think about when we're focusing specifically on the small business component of the analysis. And obviously, when we're talking about economic impacts, we would talk about larger firms as well. But as far as our obligation, with respect to small businesses, we try and pull in small firms as well. These are the requirements for getting at the cost of compliance in terms of their impacts on small businesses. Again, sort of what I already said about, we need to be able to estimate the number of small businesses. We do have that data. We started putting that into our statement. And we'll have that, we'll bring draft statements to you next time. You'll be able to see those numbers. Try to identify the types of businesses and industries with small businesses likely to be subject to the proposed rule. And from what we've heard here, it sounds like most everybody, because most everybody uses water, so, this would be, you know, where we might think about like the outfitters and in addition to the farmers and just anybody that relies on water as a small business, how they might be impacted. We also try to describe reporting, record keeping and other admin activities as well as professional services. So that's the thing like, you know, consultants, attorneys, civil, certified water rights examiners, those types of folks. The small businesses need to retain professional services. That's a cost that we need to consider. If there's special equipment, supplies, labor needed to comply with the proposed rules, we would attempt to identify and at least qualitatively describe that impact. And then we describe the manner in which small businesses have been involved in the development of the rule. We're hoping that we've accomplished that through the myriad of interests that we've brought to the table for our RAC. But again, that can be, you know, something we discuss as well. And again, we utilize available information. So this isn't us going out and hiring some contractor to figure this all out. We use what's readily available to figure this out. Okay, and then I've got some questions queued up for discussion. These are questions that are in the Secretary of State's in that software that we have to populate. So these are the questions we have to address when we do the filing. So we thought these might be the right questions to kind of help us focus the discussion. And I don't know if anybody wanted, like, maybe I'll just give you a few minutes to read this because I'm suspecting folks probably haven't had a chance to process them. The first question is just identifying who's impacted per the statute. So the agencies, local governments, members of the public. That's the economic piece. That's the one. So that's where we would include, you know, not just small businesses, but it's broader than that. And then 2A, B, and C, those are small business inquiries. Estimate the number and types of small businesses, describe the expecting reporting, record keeping and admin activities and costs. So that 2B is probably one that we would need your input on. 2C, same thing, estimating costs of professional services, equipment, labor. This isn't, I'd say 2B and C, we don't necessarily need dollars, but if you can identify, you know, like what it would take or what you think it would take a small business to comply with the rules. Like if you think they would need to hire more expertise, or if you think there's more record keeping involved than would ordinarily be required, or if you think there's a net benefit, or if you think there's a neutral impact, that's fine too. So we look at both positive and negative. So cost of not doing anything compared to the cost of what we're proposing to do. Those are other considerations that we include. So I'll stop there. See if anybody has any input or reactions to, I see Brandon, is that what you?
Well, just in regards to number one there, right, just today, we talked about some of the division rules that pertain to fish and wildlife, DEQ and parks. Curious, if we are identifying state agencies and you all now have a bunch of new things you have to do, can I assume that OWRD also puts a fiscal impact on the rules?
They wouldn't put the fiscal impact on the rules, but we would try and summarize them ourselves.
Okay.
So the department would acknowledge if there was added, we thought there was added burden or not, and we might ask them, frankly, to get good information.
Okay, that's helpful. And then units of local government, right? Obviously, gonna look at Michael, but for fiscal impacts, AOC and LOC usually tackles the fiscal impacts on legislation. So it wouldn't be outside of the realm of things that we already are responsible for. And then,
On that one, I will say I did look at some of the fiscal impact information on the legislation and kind of incorporated that in the early draft. So
okay,
I've pulled some of that information over, but.
cool.
I'm sure they
And
don't-
then the only other piece that I would flag is, I think for counties, just looking at all of the various rules is really gonna come down to what that land use piece says for what that impact is on the local planning department. Which obviously we don't know yet. So I know that this is the start of the conversation, but I will flag that depending on when we get that piece ironed out, would then be when we can take that deep dive to look at it.
Yeah, we've already got a little place over.
So what I'll note for folks, I want to be really clear, this fiscal impact and economic impact. Brent and Laura, if I get this wrong, please chime in. Is the result of the changes made to the rules. It's not the result of any existing requirements. So for
Yeah.
example, if you're already required to do a map, and we just made it clear how you're supposed to do the map, that doesn't mean there's a new fiscal impact, okay?
Yeah.
If the planning department is already required to do something, that one, I think there's still, right, if they're already required to do something, and it's just they're providing on this form instead of this form as an example, I think that would be a question mark as to whether that's a fiscal impact. You're probably used to that, but I just wanna make sure, because it's kind of similar to legislation, you're not supposed to be putting, other things on it that aren't specific to that. The other thing to be mindful of too, is that there's the things that are required by the legislation, right, that are changes. That's already mandated by the legislation. So those are the things that just as for parsing through what's actually an impact of the rulemaking. That's something else that we just have to parse through as we go through this. So. Yeah,
So I'm just trying to figure out, like, so when you talk about like equipment and supplies, is that things like now it says for a split stream or a split season in-stream lease, you need a meter and you have to talk to the water master about what type of meter, and now everybody has to get a meter, so it's the cost of that?
I think you've always had to do
They
that.
always have to do that. It's just
So-
more clear. That's what-
Yeah, it's just more clear, so. I think one of the things is we dig into this, we haven't dug into it, that's why you don't have a copy in front of you, right? We're doing all this stuff, right, but as we dig into it, I think there is probably some room for us to say like, hey, these are the things that we see as the costs as a result of the rules. These are the things that people may see as costs, but we don't think are costs because they're already existing requirements. So we could put that there because really the goal of this statement is to put people on notice so that they pay attention to the rulemaking, right? So if you put out there that, oh, there's no cost, right, then folks may pay attention less. So like, I think there is room for us to be like, here's the things that we think are actual costs of this. Here's the things that, folks have brought up. We don't think it's a cost because it's already required as an example. So there's probably some room there for us to just make sure we're being transparent so that folks can. Okay. Laura, did you have anything else? Cause I know we're
Yeah, I mean,
with the end of the day, so I
Yeah.
don't wanna belabor this, cause I know folks haven't thought too much on it yet.
yeah, I don't think folks have thought too much
Do you have another slide?
on it. I don't know if I do. No, I don't.
Okay.
The only other thing I'd say is even if it's something that we've always required and we're clarifying it in some way, it is possible there may be a cost associated with getting services to help you understand what the changes mean. So that's something to maybe pay attention to certain circumstances, so.
All right, folks, so we're gonna move, I know we're getting to that post-afternoon lull, so. I'm gonna turn our attention now over to Division 14, 300, 320, 330. And my goal here is to provide you all some context. We did a little bit of this thanks to some of the great comments this morning. And so we discussed this morning, for each one of these ones, you'll see a column on handouts that looks like this.
We're on 14 now.
And, those I need. Laura, I don't think I got one of those, by the way, but maybe I don't need it.
This is for 320, so this is the thing that I messed up on and. You're on 14.
Yeah, I think I'm missing a green. That's what
Which one?
the green sheet.
Yeah, we don't have
320.
Yeah.
There's no green sheet for 320.
There's no for 330.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, you have
Oh, wait,
320. There isn't one for
it's-
330.
there we go,
because it's
okay.
new. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Post afternoon roll, right? in my- Okay, so we've got these sheets here, right? And as I noted this morning, there is the first column, even if the titling is off on a couple of these, but or one of them, is that first column is the rule number and then the version. So the first version that you all saw, that's what the comment was on. And that's because like Division 2, we'll have we already have a version 2 that we sent out, a partial version 2, and that will be discussed on Friday. So the next section then is the issue that was raised. I'll note that if it says RACM, RACM, that means a RAC member raised it. That was either in the RAC meeting or after the RAC meeting. And then if you see OWRD and sometimes another agency or member of the public, we'll also note that there. So there's been a couple items that as we've been continuing to go through, we've flagged through this, process to correct. So we've noted it to be transparent, what the issue was, and what our response or modified language was, whether we incorporated it, and then the status, as I noted to you all this morning. So with that, you'll see that we've gone through and we've made changes as applicable, and we've so if right now I'm looking at 300, and I will say that on 300, there are not any that I identified that I think this group needs to discuss. So we probably won't bring 300 back unless someone tells me that, oh, there's something we really need to discuss as a RAC. So I'm gonna keep running through, so I'm not asking you all to dig through each one, just to give you my initial kind of rough cut on some of this, okay? So,
Which one are you starting on?
I see why I'm confused here. I just, so I want folks to not look, and I want folks to just pause and listen. How's that? Okay? All right. So 300 is one that I suspect you'll look through the changes and you'll be like, that makes sense. Let's move on, okay? If that's not the case, you can all let us know. Not quite yet, because I just want to walk through that real quick. For each division. We then have division. I'm so confused. There's still something wrong with this handout here, but anyways, I'll figure it out here. So we've got 320. So this was the one that we had discussed the last time around that was originally titled water right permits, that then had duplicative rules in 330. It was titled water right certificates. Even though most of the rules were about proving up on a water right. So as a result of the conversations that we had with you all about concerns over deletions, because of the titles, it became evident that, we really should have one of these sections called, proof of appropriation, and the other one be miscellaneous as we kind of initially proposed. And so the provisions you'll see on the 320 table, we did not move them over into 330 yet because we didn't want to create confusion here, but we'll take the changes for each one of these and then we'll move them over and renumber them. But I wanted you to see kind of what changes we made sense. So you'll see in the 320 draft that we marked up the changes based on your feedback and input. And then we also noted where we were going to renumber one into the 330 rules. So let me just skim through here real quick and see if there's anything on 320. Anything else on 320 I wanted to highlight for this group. So there was on 320 a couple items raised. The first comment was about checkpoints and whether they should be in 315. For this one, I've now looked at it. If we're going to have a conversation around checkpoints, that needs to be under 315. So just note that that's where to direct any comments there. You'll see our detailed response. I wanted to flag for the group 320-0020. We originally proposed to delete that one based on the concerns and wanting to make sure people were clear about the process for cancellation of permits. We just pointed to the statute. And so we replaced the deletion with instead saying we can initiate cancellation under these statutes. So I know cancellations are always something that's of interest, so I wanted to just flag that one for the group. The rest of the edits, I think, are really about the reorganization, and so I'll leave it there for 320. So I mean, I don't think we're gonna need to bring 320 back. That's kind of what I'm thinking on that one, but we will see if you all provide me with information otherwise. 330, I'll just note, I don't have 330, that's why I'm confused, but that's okay. 330, I don't think we need to bring back, right? Because this is really just about moving those ones over. So I just gave you the overview of the changes and it's just renumbering. And then the final one is Division 14. And so Division 14, we did go through and this one had a couple of things that we hadn't originally flagged. And so you'll see, sometimes when I see something that doesn't make sense, I just am compelled to fix it. So I apologize, but you'll see that there's been some changes under 30, which are intended to clarify that that is not the limited list of items that CWREs are required to do. I think the prior rule was quite misleading in that effort. So I don't anticipate there will be a need to bring that back, but you all can provide us with comments, okay? So I'm not trying to prevent additional conversation. I'm just trying to see, you know, at the end of the day, we'll want to know what you all want to bring back.
Was that 14 or 300?
So that was 690-14.
Did we get?
I want to pause for a second.
30.
So I think I printed the wrong thing out to be helpful for folks in the room. So I need to print out the 320 rules because we have the 300, we have the 320 cover sheet on the 300 rules. and the 300 cover sheet on the 300 rules. You guys don't actually have the 320
Okay, that's what's going on.
rules. That's what's going
Something
on.
was off, but
Yeah, and I thought I had fixed it, but I haven't.
so that's okay. But we're gonna keep going.
Yeah, you can
So
keep
like,
going.
cause you all are gonna have these materials and I know everybody's kind of tired at this point, so I just wanna, yes, go ahead.
Laura, maybe I can just toss all this and get a new email with all of it in one place.
You
Correct.
can, so the 300, the one that says 300
With the green,
on the front, yeah, the greens are all correct. The one that says 300 and has the 300 cover sheet is correct.
okay,
So the only one that's off is the 320. And Chris has sent me the combined version, because I sent out the two to the RAC via email, so I'm gonna ask Cassidy if she can print, if she's still here. She's still here. I'll ask her if she can print some and bring them in.
okay.
Okay,
But
so
you were saying
320,
14?
Yes, there's also, so there's 14 is correct, so you don't need a new printed version, but if you
This is
don't.
the-
I don't have a
it-
printed version of 14.
Okay, so let's, Laura, can you maybe grab one for Glenn?
so 14,
Yeah,
14, yeah,
at least I don't think I have.
you need the green sheet or just the?
I think both.
Oh, no, just a minute, I just didn't think. I'm
that's-
sorry, I
Could you
apologize.
not
Dig-
see
I apologize.
Ow.
Here we go. I have-
see it in the pile?
Got lost
I
in
had it in
200
my done
pages.
pile.
So, Division 14, if you look through that, there may be a couple items that you all see that you might want to discuss more, but I did want to at least walk through that, there was just a couple changes, so Glenn, the one I was just noting was 140030. And that it contained a list of saying it was titled Certified Water Rights Examiner Required. And it acted like that was the only things that CWREs are required to do. And in fact, the list was wrong in one case. Not all transfers require CWRE, as we heard today. And then it doesn't include other things that they are required to do. So we kind of tried to make it so that it wasn't so misleading. So that's that was the one I was pointing out there, that is just kind of a new issue that I wanted to make sure I raised to you all. The other piece that I wanted to note, just so you all hear it, because as we go through, one of the consistent pieces of feedback we've heard from you all is ensuring that when a CWRE is required to prepare a document, that we can accept and will accept a digital seal and signature. Right? So instead of having to go through and put that in every single rule, although I think we've pretty much almost already done that, but in the event that we haven't, I've put a catch-all in here that is on 50, subsection 3, that says that WRD will accept a digital seal and signature as long as it meets Osbeal's rules for that. Osbeal's already allows that. They're the ones that regulate CWREs. So if the CWRE is following their rules, we're good. So, and that applies to any document that that a CWRE would approve or would submit. So, so just wanted to flag that for you all. In terms of other changes, let me just, the other changes I think are kind of straightforward. So I don't know that we would need to bring Division 14 back. And when I say that I don't know that we need to bring these, so any of these divisions, I don't think we need to bring back. But if you send us an email, so send Laura an email saying, there's a big issue in here, I think we're gonna need to talk about it. Then, you know, let us know, because we'll be generating our list of rules to bring back. That said, if you just have an additional comment that you want us to consider on it, or you think maybe our edit was wrong, just submit that and we will take a look at it. And then if we do think it's a big issue, we can also determine to bring it back. But not all things will get brought back, because not all things are, you know, our commas are sometimes just our commas and we're gonna put them in, right, as we start this day. So hopefully that was clear. I know it's getting late in the day and I'm wondering if I'm making sense, so I'm seeing some thumbs up. But that's my initial assessment. We've been trying to be as transparent and clear as possible for you all. So we can read through this and you can let us know how we did, okay? And with that, I know everyone's tired, so is there any public comment that we need to take? And if not, I'd like us to wrap up so folks can be done early.
So.
Brandon, by the way, would like to keep going, so.
I'm on the boat.
And I'm gonna try and get that 320 printout. So if folks want to hang out just a couple minutes, I need to use my email.
Okay, so I'm not seeing anybody raise hands for public comment. Laura, can you give us the wrap up next steps? I know we've talked a lot about next steps, so.
Yeah, so just another reminder about our virtual Division 2 follow-up meeting, 10 a.m. to noon on the 31st. That's Friday, happy Halloween.
Can we appear in costume?
Oh, by all means. By all means. I'm sure Raquel will.
I'll be dressed as Mike McCord, who's retiring. Friday is his last day.
Wow.
So
Plaid shirts.
I encourage anybody, if you don't yet have a costume, dress like Mike McCord Day is what Halloween's gonna be for me, so.
Okay, and our next RAC meeting is the 12th. I guess, agenda to be determined, but we'll be following up for sure on the statements that we talked about briefly. And probably identifying some other, rule follow-ups. Hoping to get some rule, meeting summaries out to you guys too. We're getting backed up there, so, we're hoping to get that done. As a reminder too, I mentioned this in the morning, but just another reminder, we'd like that input on RAC 3 and RAC 4 draft rules by Friday as well. And then our RAC 5 meeting draft rules by November 5th. I can go back to the slide at the beginning. I'll do that in a second. And as far as what we talked about today, I think 382, we said November 5th. I have it on here as November 11th. I think, 380, Division 380, that was RAC meeting 5. And as Raquel outlined for folks, 380 and 382 are pretty tightly related. So if you have issues on 380, probably just going to copy them over to 382. So it'd be great if you could get us the 382 input by that November 5th date as well. And then for Division 77, hoping to get that input by November 11th.
So folks, just as a framing point, we need you to get that, so for 77, if we're going, I already know you all want to talk about 77 again, right? So that means that will be done at the 21st meeting. If you all want to see a beautiful document like this one at the November 21st meeting, you have to have any comments in by the 11th for us to be able to turn that around. It's a very short turnaround time for us to turn this around. So that's all to say, the earlier you can get them, the better. I also know you've got a lot on the plates, but we have to stick to that date on that particular issue.
Yeah, and those green, the green sheets, this reflects what we hear during the RAC meeting, so oral comments as well as what we get in writing. So and we're kind of doing the rule summaries at the same time we're working on these update sheets. So that's so that the follow-up piece makes sense for RAC folks. So that's why the delay in the summaries. It's not a great excuse, but that's.
Well, if you look at this, just a little hint, if you look at the summary and then you look at this sheet, we're copying and pasting overs into this.
Other than the written, and you're getting the written as well, so. That's all I got.
All right, everyone looks tired, so we are going to end our day. I appreciate all of you for sitting through this. I appreciate all the comments. And so thank you all, and we will see some of you on Friday. And then we will see all of you again on the date, the 12th. Thank you. Have a safe drive for those of you that, well, all of you probably drove here, so all of you have a safe drive. For those of you that have longer ones, make sure you get coffee, and Glenn, take care of yourself on that drive back. This is a long day. Okay.